Dom, just gone 10:30 at night here outside Windsor Castle. Inside, I understand they are sipping the transatlantic whiskey sour.
I'm probably deserve it as well, and I'm very envious. I could do with a drink too after a day like this.
Do you know what the transatlantic whiskey sour is?
I understand it's the cocktail that is the cocktail du jour.
So the King started a tradition a while ago, a new cocktail crafted for each state dinner. And we are told from Buckingham Palace that this particular tipple is a UK-US twist on the classic whiskey sour. Wait for it. Blends the smoky depth of Johnny Walker Black with the bright citrus of marmalade.
I'm not sure it's going to catch on, but I'm sure they're enjoying them.
I hope it's Johnny Walker without the tariffs. Maybe it will be tomorrow. I'm Mark Stone.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor.
And on Trump 100 from outside Windsor Castle, a day of pomp and pageantry with a purpose. Quite the day. We'll get into it all.
Trump said it was going to be a Trump fest, didn't he? And a fest it was indeed inside the castle and its grounds, of course. But outside the castle, well, we've had protests, not very big ones, but protests nevertheless against the biggest state visit the UK has ever hosted.
Yeah, plus can spirits stay high for day 2 of the visit, or will those whiskey sours provide some hangovers? The royals step to one side, the business, the politics, the diplomacy, that is the day ahead. And it's where the rubber hits the road. So, Dom, quite the day, wasn't it? What did you expect, and did it align with your expectations?
I think so, yeah. And I think we expected the British constitutional monarchy to pull all the stops out to welcome this president for an unprecedented second state visit, and we expected him to enjoy it, and he certainly seemed to have.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, at every point, I kind of got the sense that this was almost a side of the president we haven't quite seen before. I mean, yeah, at times his face was the same old face, but you could sense that the sort of awe he has for the tradition that is the British royal family and the institution that is the British royal family. He was loving every moment of it, from the very beginning when we saw over the skies of central London, Marine One taking off from Regent's Park, from Winfield House, where you were a night earlier, where he stayed. That's the ambassador's residence, the US ambassador's residence. Those 2 helicopters flanked by a Chinook took him from there to here, to Windsor, Berkshire, for the big moment. And the helicopter landed. He got out, greeted first by the Prince and Princess of Wales.
Yes, and then taken over to meet the King and Queen.
This is my father, I think the Prince of Wales was heard to say.
As if that was in any doubt. But what was interesting, wasn't it, I think, was that we are used, as we were saying earlier on today, we're used to seeing this president as very much in control of wherever he is, having a commanding physical presence, and yet he was slightly a fish out of water, wasn't he? But that's not to say he was. I mean, he was out of his comfort zone in the sense this isn't territory he's familiar with, but he clearly loved it. But as you say, there were emotions we saw with Donald Trump that we don't see very often. That he was clearly very moved by this. He was, I think, humbled by it. He also really enjoyed it, and we saw him smile, and it's quite striking. You do not see Donald Trump smile very often, but I think in the speech he gave at the banquets, we saw a sort of graciousness. Yeah. He couldn't resist certain political jibes, but that was kept to a minimum. There was a graciousness from this president, I think, that was quite surprising for me.
It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. And if you think about it, it's a lot of presidents, and this was the second state visit, and that's the first, and maybe that's going to be the last time. I hope it is, actually. But this is truly one of the highest honors of my life. His Majesty spoke eloquently about the bond which inspired Sir Winston Churchill, and the bust is in the Oval Office right now, the beautiful bust of Winston Churchill, to coin the phrase special relationship. But seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language, and by transcendent ties of culture, tradition, ancestry, and destiny. We're like 2 notes in one chord, or 2 verses of the same poem, each beautiful on its own, but really meant to be played together.
Dom, do you reckon there's a little bit of Donald Trump when he walked around here thinking, I'd like a bit of this?
Almost certainly, yeah. As there often is with Donald Trump, he's somebody who likes to sort of get inspiration, doesn't he, from authoritarian regimes as well. We're reminded of the fact that we're told that in his first term in office, he looked at Yevgeny Prigozhin's mercenary army, the Wagners in Russia, and said, I'd like to have one of those. And he had to be told that that wasn't really possible. He's someone he's a builder. He loves buildings. And I think, he will be envious of this place, as all American tourists are who come here, and they know that they just don't have anything that matches it from their history.
Yeah, watch this space. There'll be one of these castles in Florida soon.
It just reminds me of the story of the American tourist. And you have to remember that Americans do love this building because it's 4 times as old as America. But the story is that an American tourist came here and said it's a fantastic castle, but why did the Queen build it under the flight path at Heathrow? Which may have gone through Donald Trump's minds as well, because the planes did interrupt things a few times today, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. So there was the moment where the King and the President, they got into the Irish state carriage, didn't they? And they went down Frogmore Drive from Victoria House to the castle itself. To have had an ear in that carriage.
Absolutely, yeah. And to be a fly on the wall on a number of the encounters we saw today, and to be able to listen in would be fascinating, wouldn't it? And particularly, I think, as he went to St George's Chapel to visit Queen Elizabeth's grave, because that was a kind of a homage. It was him paying homage at the shrine of a woman who he holds in very high regard. And it's a reflection, I think, also of the fact that he's old enough to remember Queen Elizabeth at a time when she was the first global, globe-trotting mega-star celebrity. Something he aspires to, but celebrity is hugely important to this president. So it's not just that she was a great monarch and a wonderful person and a wonderful woman, but also that she was this great celebrity. And I think he wanted to connect to that as well as to all the pageantry and the royal welcome he was able to enjoy as well today.
The other thing that was interesting that I noticed in St George's Chapel when he was there paying homage to the late Queen was who was around him, because it wasn't just him in the chapel. His top team from the White House were there too. Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, his sort of Swiss Army knife fixer-in-chief, Steve Witkoff. All of them were there as well, and I think that is kind of was a clear hint that this isn't just about pomp and pageantry. It's about deals. It's about diplomacy too.
Yeah, and as we saw with the guest list at the dinner, it was the great and the good of American and British diplomacy and politics and government, but also it was a kind of who's who of particularly American business, wasn't it? And tech titans like Sam Altman from OpenAI, Tim Cook from Apple, even Rupert Murdoch, who was involved and locked in a rather bitter legal dispute with Donald Trump. He was invited as well. So these are very important people. They're not just important in a business, economic sense, but they are important in the sense that they are helping him and have pledged allegiance, in a sense, to this president. So, he travels more than any other president like a kind of emperor, doesn't he? He travels with hundreds of a retinue of hundreds of diplomats, but also politicians and business leaders. And in the background, behind all the pomp and ceremony, there was just a huge amount of diplomacy and we assume business deals being done as well.
Yeah, Dom, I've just spotted our royal correspondent, Rhiannon Mills. She's just come off a long, long day. Come and join us.
You're still standing.
Yeah, it's been a great day, hasn't it?
And you had an amazing ringside viewing point, didn't you?
Quadrangle. Yeah, sometimes, with our jobs, we do manage to wangle our way into amazing places, don't we? Look, whatever you think about whether or not we should have given Donald Trump this state visit, there is no doubt that it showed off UK PLC at its best. Like the military ceremony was absolutely spectacular, and of all the people to give this kind of honour to, Donald Trump is the man, isn't he? Like, you guys follow him day in, day out, and constantly talks about the royal family with nothing but the utmost respect, and you could see it. You could really see it today.
So, Rhiannon, take us behind the scenes, because you went into the St George's Hall, is it, where the banquet was?
Yeah.
You went in there before, and you were telling me how you have this moment where you can look at where people are sitting.
It's like a game show.
Right. So tell us.
Like the supermarket sweep of the royal banqueting world. Basically, they won't give you the guest list, probably because they don't want you to have too much time to unpick it and work out who's sitting next to who. So you just have to, for 5-10 minutes, basically run around as quickly as you can, try and spot the names that you recognise, and then figure out who's sitting next to who. But like, I came out straight away and said to you, look, it just underpins what this state visit is all about. Yes, the smattering of royals, and that's probably what's going to be on the front pages tomorrow, Kate in a tiara, but alongside her and many others, it was all business CEOs, kind of tech bros, those from the world of business, defence, security, just underpinning all the really important geopolitical kind of dealings that make up the really important part of these state visits, the ultimate diplomatic gift.
So I've got a question for both of you.
Oh, here we
This is
go.
a word we've used all day. Pomp. What does it mean?
Oh,
Can you
goodness, and
define
I should
pomp?
be the expert, shouldn't I? It's the marching, the saluting, the ceremony. Is that it?
Yeah, it's everything we saw today, is it not?
That's just a cop out. So it's magnificent, splendid ceremony, apparently, but it's also potentially
You've got your
an alternative.
thesaurus out.
I've looked it up
Oh,
because
here
I
we go.
thought I'm using this word all day, and I'm not entirely sure what it means. But it also means vain and ostentatious. So for both of you,
Okay.
was it slightly over the top? Do you think? You know, 3 regiments.
Slightly.
I mean, did the
It was a lot
did the monarchy
bigger.
overplay its hand?
Oh, there was nothing like slightly overstated about this. That no one was being shy or coy about the fact that in all the press releases it was saying that this is the biggest ceremonial military welcome we have given any visiting head of state in living memory. Like, that is quite a statement to make.
And all for a president who has been so divisive, so disruptive, so confrontational. He carries all the baggage that we've all talked about. He is loved as much as he is absolutely loathed. So Dom, diplomatic editor, why are we doing this?
That's the question, and I think the controversy around why, but also when, and why did Keir Starmer extend this extraordinary privilege so early on? Because a number of senior diplomats were saying to the government back in February, "Don't do this now. This is obviously a hand that you have to play at some point. You'd be mad not to do so. But why are you doing this now? Surely this is something that Donald Trump could work towards. It could be a kind of incentive that could be dangled in front of his eyes and say, give us preferential treatment. At some point, we'll be able to reward you with this." But Keir Starmer went for doing so now, despite all the enormous disquiet and squeamishness that people within his own government have with Donald Trump about his attitude to women, his friendship with the infamous paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, around whom this scandal has produced a very unsavoury prelude to this state visit, but also over issues like Gaza, Ukraine, the way Donald Trump has ripped up the rules-based world order, or is in the process of doing so. Despite all of that, the government was convinced that it would be mad not to play this state visit hand a second time, but they've got to prove it was worth it now.
And I can tell you that they did. There was a live debate within the British government and within the British diplomatic community in Washington about when to play the card. Some thought play it up front, straight up, and I think that was the prevailing view in the embassy. Those that are closest to Trump, who understand Trump the best, they were the ones saying, you should do this now, do it at the beginning. But there were others, as you say, who you've talked to, who were a bit more reserved.
Yeah, I think there were veterans who were in that job before,
Yeah.
who thought you're being over hasty. It's unseemly and it's over hasty. And obviously, as you're saying, the voices who were calling for doing it early on prevailed.
Well, one of them's gone, Peter Mandelson.
But also, if you remember the letter, I just think that the wording of the letter was really interesting because it wasn't trying to kind of entirely put the brakes on the state visit, but the King was actually offering 2 chances of a meeting. The first was meant to be a kind of more private kind of get-together. Let's meet up in Scotland, talk about what we want to have with the state visit. But no, Donald Trump wanted to go full tilt and wanted this to happen now and happen quickly, because usually the planning around these state visits, it takes a lot more time than we've seen this year. Invitation delivered in February, April. Donald Trump was saying, yeah, I'm going to get my fest in September, and now we've seen it.
And there was a huge amount of jeopardy between then and now, because honestly, with Trump, anything could have happened. I mean, you deliver the invitation, and then goodness knows what he could end up doing between then and now. I mean, as
Well, it
it
has
is,
happened, hasn't it? I mean, these cracks have opened up
Yeah.
into, widening chasms over Ukraine. We have an American president who is siding more and more with Vladimir Putin as to how this war should end. We have Gaza, where he's effectively given a carte blanche to the Israelis to carry out a campaign that many within his own ruling party believe is genocidal, and the whole issue of trade. Britain has won a trade deal of sorts with the Trump administration, but in the words of Joseph Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, it's not worth the paper it's written on, because this is a president who cannot be relied upon to, his word can't be relied on, and his signature on any deal can't be relied to stay there. For instance, the Paris climate change deal and the Iranian nuclear deal. So that's a jeopardy. Even whatever he says tomorrow, is he going to stick to it? Is he going to give Keir Starmer something that will be lasting, so Starmer can say this gamble was worth, taking, and it will pay off?
I mean, it's worth saying that trade deal, it's not a deal, the trade arrangement, lowering the tariffs to that baseline of 10%, it is the envy of many other countries around the world. It's still not nearly as good as what we had before Trump came back to power. But I suppose the point that economist is making is that he could just change his mind tomorrow.
It's unfinished business, isn't it? And I think that's why the government feels that you had to get him back here, put him in the best frame of mind as possible, and try and tie him down on a few more details, and also do that with the members of the administration he's brought
So
with
to have the King, in his speech, very pointedly talk about trade, well, I can believe it. Because usually those speeches are so nuanced, you kind of have to try and unpick, okay, what's the member of the royal family actually trying to get at? But look, we know President Trump is a man, he likes straight talking, and he definitely got that from the King tonight, saying, yeah, we had the first trade deal arrangement with you, but now we want to go further. And it's powerful from him. Like, Trump respects him. And they've played that card really effectively, I think, the government.
Quite close to the bone, though, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's getting as political as a monarch should get.
Possibly
Possibly crossing the line.
Our cultural connections, too, continue to flourish, with our actors, musicians, writers and television presenters prospering in the hearts of transatlantic audiences. Today, our alliance spans every field of endeavour and shows vast potential for growth. The United Kingdom was your partner in the first trade deal of your administration, Mr. President, bringing jobs and growth to both our countries. And no doubt we can go even further as we build this new era of our partnership.
Okay, so let's get into the state banquet, because it was kind of a who's who, but it was also a who's where. Where were they all sitting? Because it was fascinating to see that obviously the President and the King next to each other, flanked by the Princess of Wales next to Donald Trump, and then on the other side next to the King, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Little Marco, as Donald Trump used to call him, now such a key member of his cabinet. On the other side, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, was sitting next to the Queen, next to Queen Camilla, Lady Starmer sitting there as well. I mean, it really was the great and the good.
In a hall that was built, I think, 700 years ago, so almost 3 times as old as America itself. And I think that was totally awe-inspiring for everyone there, but particularly for the Americans. And I think we've been saying, is this going to set a template for future state visits? And I think, if you look at that setting, I'm not sure there's anything in Buckingham Palace that comes as close to that in terms of history and the kind of, sheer sort of grandeur of the setting. So you kind of wonder whether that's going to be used more in the future.
Let's talk fashion. I thought at one point, I have to be honest, we were watching it on a small screen. The First Lady, Melania, came out. What colour was she wearing?
It's sort of yellowy
and I
colour.
thought she had like her midriff showing. I thought it was like a crop top.
No,
and then I realised it was a beige belt.
Cummerbund, I think, exactly. Yeah.
So what do you think? And you had a few comments about the president's suit, which we'll get into.
It was a better suit, and that's been said on social media as well. It wasn't just me. He seems to have found a better tailor. It was better fitted. His suits often sort of look like sort of flannel tents draped around his figure, don't they? He cut a finer dash. I think he felt he had to find a slightly better look.
And I think the same tailor had worked on his white tie, because it looked a bit better than the white tie he was wearing.
The waistcoat last time was sort of far too low down, wasn't it?
Oh, it was too. Yeah, that's right. It was too low down.
Alistair Bruce, our events commentator, you need to talk to him about where your jackets should fall and your waistcoats and that sort of thing. He actually sent me a picture of Donald Trump from the first state visit and basically said, look at this absolute disaster. So I hope that Alistair was a little bit happy about
we'll
how the president was dressed.
I wasn't convinced. It's not my territory, but I wasn't convinced by the First Lady's hat. I mean, it was compared to sort of a lampshade by some people uncharitably on social media, but it was a strange look.
But also, I was intrigued because we saw her then looking at the royal collection sort of artefacts. She still had the hat on. So can you eat lunch easily with a hat like that on?
Can you see where you're going?
Well, exactly.
Ask the Brigade of Guards with their bearskins. I don't know how they can see where they're going with those, but
true, very true.
Rhiannon, we know you've got to go, but quickly before you do, tell us why, in your view, from a royal perspective, why today matters for what happens tomorrow.
So I'm going to be interested to get your thoughts on this, but I think today it's vital for what we're going to see tomorrow. Yeah, of course, he will meet up with Keir Starmer tomorrow. He will have to face members of the public. Can you call journalists that? Not quite meeting the protesters, but Donald Trump will face questions about the uncomfortable backdrop.
He'll face people that aren't royal.
Indeed. And he will face questions. Yep, the uncomfortable backdrop of this trip will come up. But I think what everyone who has planned this visit will hope is that today will leave him feeling that he has been welcomed, that he only feels positive things towards the United Kingdom. And also, I think you have to remember for him, he has consistently talked about the King, the honour of it being held here at Windsor Castle. For him, ultimately, it's all been about today. It's been about the pageantry. And he has this huge respect for the King. And therefore, tomorrow, is he likely to say anything that will really overshadow this trip? I don't think he'll want to. But hey, maybe that's wishful thinking.
It's been all about him, hasn't it? And we've been sort of wrestling all day with trying to put a finger on there's been a weirdness to the day, hasn't there? And the sterile nature of it. And, it's because there have been no members of the public allowed anywhere near this. And over dinner, my producer and I, Kenny Stewart, pointed out, I think he sort of came up with the best analogy. It's like the Truman Show. Today has been about hundreds of people going to enormous lengths and spending a huge amount of resources, all to focus on one man, to give him the impression that the whole world revolves around him. Well, actually, the real world, beyond the battlements, but also beyond the enormous structure they've built around the grounds of Windsor Castle, sort of carries on regardless. And that's a really artificial kind of construction they've set up around the president, unlike previous state visits where protesters have got close enough to George Bush, for instance, to throw eggs at him, and we've seen the blimps and things from the past. It's been so sterile and secluded and cut off from the outside world. Tomorrow, though, the real world starts crowding back in on Donald Trump in the form of journalists who will bring up tricky questions like Jeffrey Epstein, about trade, about Ukraine and Gaza. All of those are potentially quite provocative. And you're right, if he's been put in the right mood, if he's under the right spell and really been seduced by this, he won't rise to that. He won't take the bait. But I think it's still a big jeopardy for the Starmer government.
Right, Dom, moving on to the day ahead. It's where the rubber hits the road. It's the diplomacy, it is the trade deals, it's the tech, it's the AI, and it is the news conference.
It's the business end of this trip, isn't it? And what Keir Starmer has to do is prove that this was worth it. It was worth demeaning the monarchy in the minds of his critics. It was worth doing this now. It was worth bringing someone here who has this terrible reputation with women, someone who is at odds, widening odds with his own government and European allies over Ukraine, but also over Gaza, and someone who doesn't seem to really believe, a leader of the free world who doesn't seem to really believe in the rules-based world order. And so to do that, he's got to try and show that he has taught Donald Trump back over to his side, the European side, on at least some of those issues. But crucially, I think most of all, he has to prove that he is getting America to put Britain further ahead in the queue for preferential treatment over trade deals. And I think his concern will be that Donald Trump will bank what he's got here today. This is a very transactional president. He won't feel he has to give much back in return. He doesn't really seem to believe often in quid pro quo. And he's somebody, even if he gives his word tomorrow, he might go back on in the future.
I was reading a column that Peter Westmacott, former British ambassador in Washington, said. And he said, now is the time for Britain to be a bit more transactional. That we know this is a transactional president. They've given him this lavish freebie over the course of the past day. Now they need to ask for something in return and actually notch it up a bit.
Yeah, and I talked to Peter, actually, as he was mulling over writing that article a few days ago. And he was saying, that so often we just, as a country, as a government, we don't sort of point out to the Americans everything they are getting in return. The enormous amount of military support, intelligence support, the use of bases overseas, even Ascension Island and other places, often on terms...
Sorry to interrupt, but Trump if any American president isn't necessarily aware of that, Trump certainly isn't, because he seems to be only aware of what's put in front of him. So it's really important to remind him of that.
But also he's a president who wants to know what he's getting.
Yeah.
He's not like Joe Biden, who sort of was much more generous. He wants to know, is America being ripped off here? And therefore, I think Sir Peter's point is that actually, in many cases, we don't really point out to the Americans how much they are getting out of the deal. And it's actually time to be a bit more transactional and appeal to that side of the president's nature and his character.
There'll be a lot on tech and AI, and we saw that from the guest list at the banquet. Jensen Huang is the chief executive of NVIDIA. He was in the banquet, and he said, "Today marks a historic chapter in the US-United Kingdom technology collaboration. We are at the big bang of the AI era," he said, "and the United Kingdom stands in a Goldilocks position where world-class talent, research and industry converge." So that gives you a sort of sense of excitement. But I guess the question is, what is Britain giving up? What is it giving to America in order to get this?
And ahead of the visit, we had our expectations managed, because I think there was a hope that we were going to get preferential treatment over particularly steel and other industrial tariffs. And it became clear that that's just not going to happen. So to make up for that disappointment, we've been told about these deals involving AI, but also American investment in financial services. If you talk to people like our economics editor, Ed Conway, he's more sceptical about how much of this money is actually new. Mm-hmm. But I think the reservations about AI and also about the nuclear power that will have to be used to power this very power-hungry new form of technology is that, yes, that will create jobs. It will obviously put billions of dollars worth of investment into the UK if it comes off. But longer term, these data centres and the nuclear power that power them actually don't need many people to operate them. So you get a kind of sugar rush economically from that straight up. But actually, it's not a long-term sort of benefit for the country.
Yeah, quite. And lastly, I guess the big moment of jeopardy, the moment I'm looking forward to the most, the news conference at the end of the day tomorrow in Chequers, the Prime Minister's country residence, President and Prime Minister taking questions from all of us.
Which I think will be fascinating. And I think, we heard from Jeremy Hunt earlier, the former Foreign Secretary, and he described the moment of extreme trepidation as he sat alongside Theresa May in Chequers in 2018, where there was a press conference that, as they watched Donald Trump with their kind of hearts in their mouths, because he said we had absolutely no idea what he was going to say next. And I think, that is terrifying, as it was for them back then, but also, I think even more so for Keir Starmer, given the kind of political situation he's in. And he knows, this is a mercurial, erratic, unpredictable president. He could say anything tomorrow. They'll probably hope they'll be exhausted by what's happened today. He'll be in a very good mood, and he won't want to sort of be mischievous. But, he may find it hard to resist. He behaves unpredictably when the cameras are on him. He won't have said much throughout this visit. He will be able to tomorrow. What's he going to say? And what's that going to do long-term to American-British relations? Could it undo everything that's been achieved behind these walls today?
We will find out. We will be back tomorrow for another episode of Trump 100. Exciting news as well, because we are collaborating with Electoral Dysfunction, our other podcast, one of our other podcasts. Beth and I getting together for a special episode of Trump 100 and Electoral Dysfunction. So join us for that.
Good to be on the podcast.
Yeah, good to see you, Dom. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.